combating nutrition disinformation and general bull. It's Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another Instagram Live. We got another Jimmy Rants episode all ready to go for you guys here today. And if you're brand new to Jimmy Rants, head on over to JimmyRants.com. And we have a pretty special show, you guys, because we start off on Instagram Live. So go follow me over on Instagram at Livin' Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. And you can engage live with me like I will down with all these people down there here in just a moment. And then you can watch the replay there for 24 hours. Then we head on over to YouTube with all these videos. We're at 70-something episodes now, so go check them out. If you just type in a Jimmy Rants in a search, you should be able to find my past rants. And then we put it on a podcast for you guys that like listening in the car, about a 10 to 15 minute podcast with the best of the best moments from these Jimmy Rants. Again, JimmyRants.com is the website. And today's Jimmy Rants episode is all about ketones and what they mean for your metabolic health. Because while we know ketones are a powerful therapeutic sign that you're doing pretty well, having shifted your body from being a sugar burner to a fat burner, there is this mistaken notion that I want to set the record straight on here today. There are people who start on a ketogenic diet because they've heard about all of the great benefits that come from eating this way. And there's many great benefits that come from eating a low carb, moderate protein, high fat diet. But what people think is going to happen is that they get into a state of ketosis, and these higher and higher levels of ketones are going to help them lose weight. Okay? So can I be the first to tell you, I hate to burst your bubble, but that's not how it works. Ketone production is not anything regarding your weight loss. Ketone production merely says your body is now being primarily fueled by fat, which is fat both in your diet and stored body fat, okay? So when people first start on a ketogenic diet, you will tend to have higher levels of ketones. I don't know why this is. None of the doctors I've ever interviewed know why this is. The theory is that your body's getting used to using the ketones for fuel, and in that interim of not knowing what to do with them, they start to build up in the blood. And so when you first start, maybe that first month, 2 or 3 of going keto, and you get real serious about it, and you're testing for ketosis and all that, and you test and you've got a 4 point something or a 5 point something, maybe 6. I think the highest I got in that first 3 months of doing nutritional ketosis, I got a 6.7. And I was sitting there going, does this mean I can have a sweet potato to bring them down? Because I wasn't worried that they were going to harm me, but it was just interesting to me how high they got. And of course, the longer you stay keto adapted, the more normalized that becomes, where you fall into like a range. So I know for me, I try to stay between 1 to 2. Some people can't get that high, and maybe they are like 0.6 to 1.1. Whatever your range is, it'll eventually come back down. But people think, oh my gosh, if I want to lose weight, I have to get my ketones higher and higher. And of course, some companies have taken advantage of that. Some of these companies that promote exogenous ketones, not that exogenous ketones in and of themselves are horrible, but some of the marketing practices of these companies, like Prove It. Please stay away from that cult, by the way. They are a cult to the hilt. You do not want to have anything to do with them, and their products are just pure, unadulterated garbage, because they're promoting it as, we'll get you in ketosis in 60 minutes or less, and you can eat all the carbs you want, and we'll give you higher and higher ketones, all with the promise that those higher ketones will give you weight loss and improve your health. Please do not buy that bill of goods. That is a huge package of bull funky, is all I got to say. So why would you want higher ketones, right? So from a therapeutic standpoint, beyond weight loss, there is an argument for higher ketones being good for cognitive function and health, and other parts of the body that rely on ketones. So the heart would also benefit from having higher levels of ketones. So when you see people posting their blood ketone readings on social media, oh, I got a 4.6. I don't want you to get upset about that if you're not seeing a 4.6, okay? I think there is a much better marker if you want to see how you're doing on your ketogenic approach. Certainly blood ketones is a good one, but I don't want you to get upset that you only have 1.2 and your buddy has 4.6. Come on. We got to stop it with that. Everybody's on different levels of their journey. And as I said at the beginning, you'll tend to have higher ketone levels early on until your body gets used to using them. And at some point, those will level out into a range, okay? What I think every single person watching this right now can do, if you want to know your state of metabolic health and how well you're going to do in your efforts to lower insulin levels and lower your weight, your body weight, and improve health markers, is to test your blood sugar. So I want to know how many of you are currently testing your blood sugar. I would dare say not enough people. And if you're not testing your blood sugar, how do you know how you're doing? Because here's what happens too. There is an inverse relationship between blood sugar and blood ketones. So if you lower your blood sugar, your ketones should, in general, be higher, and vice versa. When you raise blood ketones, generally that will push your blood sugar lower. Well, in the example with that company pushing their exogenous ketones, they're telling people to eat carbs and take their supplement to raise their ketones. So they have simultaneously higher levels of blood glucose and higher levels of blood ketones. That's not natural. That's not the way it's supposed to work. So don't take that stuff unless you're using it for other reasons. So from the standpoint of what we're talking about here today, and if you're just joining us, this Jimmy Rants is all about how higher ketones don't necessarily mean more weight loss when you go keto, but there is something that does, and that's lower blood sugar. Now, obviously not hypoglycemia, that's not what I'm referring to, but lower within the natural state of things. You should see your blood sugar go down when you eat a well-formulated, real whole foods-based ketogenic diet, okay? So if your blood sugar goes down, what are you doing? You're lowering insulin, you're lowering inflammation, you're lowering all of the things that would make it more and more difficult for your body to release stored body fat, and thus you'll produce weight loss, okay? So stop looking at the ketones as the be-all, end-all. Well, and I get this all the time, I have a 1.7 on my blood ketone meter, and I'm not losing weight, and I don't understand, and blah, 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 blah. And you can have all the best ketosis in the world, but if you're stressed, you're not going to lose weight. If you're stressed, it's going to show up in your blood sugar, though, which is why I'm encouraging you to test for your blood sugar. You should look for definitely under 100 at all times. Optimally, you want to be under 90. And I've seen well-formulated keto dieters easily be in the 70s with their blood sugar, and that's not hypoglycemia. A lot of mainstream doctors, they look at a 70s with a keto dieter and they go, oh my gosh, that patient's exhibiting hypoglycemia. And yet they're asymptomatic of any problems. So the number itself is not bad within the context of eating a low-carb, moderate protein, high-fat diet. So hopefully in this Jimmy Rants you get it, that higher ketones doesn't mean you're going to get more weight loss on keto, but usually lower blood sugar does. All right, let's see what you guys have to say. Welcome in, welcome in. Thanks for being here, you guys. Hello, Caitlin. Thanks for being here. Hey, Joette. Hey, Jen. Hello, Keto My Burrito. How you doing, man? Oh, I love you too, Deeds13. Thank you for that. I'm testing several times a day, Penny Key. Is that ketones or blood sugar that you're testing several times a day? Never tested, not concerned. Everything else is good. Blood sugar usually under 90. So Bullock in 2018, you're way ahead of the game. That's not to say that I don't think there's value in at least knowing where you stand in your blood sugar or excuse me, your blood ketones, but blood sugar will tell more of the tale of what's going on in terms of why you might not be losing weight when you're keto and you're showing ketosis on a meter. And here's the other thing. I mentioned exogenous ketones. There are other things that will raise your ketones a little bit artificially. MCT oil will do that. Even coconut oil to a lesser degree, but it still will have an impact on that. How quickly you test your ketones after having a fatty meal. You'll notice that if you eat a fatty meal that's low in carbohydrate, moderate in protein, and you test your ketones like shortly after eating that, you'll probably see a spike in it as well. So ketones can be manipulated to go higher, but there's very few things that will make your blood sugar go lower other than doing the things that it takes to lower your blood sugar. I test once a week. Fasting ranges around 70s for your blood glucose. Good job, Olga. That is wonderful. I'm still looking for more information about glucose and non-diabetics. What do you want to know, Penny? I use keto sticks during a 48-hour fast. The stick didn't change color at all. My blood sugar readings during the fast were 69 to 72 throughout. I know I was in ketosis. So Barnyard Keto, if you follow my work, you know I'm no fan of testing with urine testing. And what happened was the reason you showed no ketosis is because all of the ketones that are in your urine, I'm going to get kind of nerdy now, but all the urine ketones known as acetoacetate, they got converted into the usable form of ketones that are in the blood. That one's called beta-hydroxybutyrate. So had you tested blood ketones instead of peeing on a stick, you would have seen really good levels of blood ketones. So that's why you showed no ketosis. Joshua J. Winslow, my doc does my testing. I don't check for anything. I just follow the 70-25 guidelines, monitor the mirror and scale. Am I doing wrong? No, you're not doing wrong if you're feeling well and you're getting results in that, Joshua. But knowledge is power. And I think it's very easy to go down to the Walgreens, CVS, whatever's close, Rite Aid, whatever's close to you, even Walmart, and get you a glucometer and test just to see where you stand. And sometimes I like to test when I'm in the midst of stress because I want to see just how bad that stress is impacting me, because I can always tell when I'm under a little more stress. I can always tell I have higher blood sugar. And the reason you get higher blood sugar when you're stressed is the cortisol response and the blood sugar going up in response to that, which then makes your insulin go up, and that pushes all the hunger signals. So sometimes it's just the knowledge of knowing how your body's reacting, not just to your diet, but also life circumstances, that makes this so powerful. Hello, Ashton. Thanks for being here. Hello, Dad on a Mission. Great conversation with a dad on a mission yesterday. Richard's got an awesome story we will be sharing. I think it's in February when that comes out. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Test your sugar just as a diabetic. Yes, it's Darla Daisy. Everybody thinks that testing your blood sugar is only for people with type 2 diabetes and type 1 diabetes. And I'm here to tell you that I make the argument that every single person watching this right now needs to be testing their blood sugar. Because if you know that you know that you know what your blood sugar is, then there's no doubting. There's no like guessing. I wonder what's going on. No, you know. And to me, it's ludicrous that we live in such a technological age, and they're coming out now with the Apple Watch is going to have an ability to test your blood sugar here within the next few years. I know they've already been in beta phase, and Tim Cook, the Apple CEO, he's actually been testing the blood sugar monitoring of it. And I'm excited because I think this is the wave of the future in health, is patients tracking their own data. And with all the technological tools that are available at our disposal, why would we stay in the dark? I could understand if it was the 1960s and 70s and we didn't even have computers yet, you know, that were home computers. If I could understand, oh my gosh, okay, well, we'll just do the best we can. We've got the tools to check. Why wouldn't we? Oh, it's your blood sugar. Thank you, Penny. Do you think the glucose ketone index is relevant? It can be, Penny. And just so I can explain it to the people that don't know, so it's this number that's millimoles per liter of your glucose. which Americans don't do that. We do milligrams per deciliter. But in general, I think a normal reading for millimoles per liter for glucose is somewhere around 4 to 5. Okay. So that would be somewhere in like the 80 to 100 range with 4 to 5. And then ketone, you try to get it on a 1-to-1 basis if you're doing it for therapeutics. So for cancer, for Alzheimer's, for Parkinson's, for epilepsy, whatever the therapeutic use of it is, you want to try to get that 1-to-1 ratio. I think for average everyday people, 1-to-1's a little too intense. I'm thinking probably a 3 or 4 to 1 ratio would probably be more, I think it would be smarter. And so that would translate as a 4 would be in the 80s with your glucose, and then a 1 on the blood ketone meter. That would be the 4 to 1. And I think that's probably a decent way to do it. I don't think you have to go to that really extreme level of glucose to ketone index having to be a 1-to-1 ratio when you don't have a chronic disease you're trying to treat. It's Darla Daisy wants to know when the best time to test is. Test blood sugar, blood ketones. What are you talking about? Relevant for weight loss specifically, not from a therapeutic perspective. So again, my argument in this Jimmy Rants is it's not about the higher ketones leading to weight loss, but the lower blood sugar, because the ramifications of lower blood sugar is lowered insulin, lowered inflammation, and other things that would impact your weight. Okay. So I don't think you have to go to a 1-to-1 ratio on that glucose to ketone index. I don't think you need to go to that level. Just watch the blood sugar, and if it gets down below 90, you should be in that great range to be able to start shedding stored body fat. Again, if you have all the other lifestyle markers in check, so stress, sleep, hormonal imbalances, medications, things like that. Yeah, urine sticks don't work well, Deeds 13, that's right. Because they're not measuring a usable form of ketone. The 2 usable forms of ketone after you're keto adapted are blood ketones, which is the beta hydroxybutyrate, and the breath ketones, which is the acetone. So those are the 2 you want to test. Regarding glucose, I've read that no insulin is likely released until we go over 100. It was referred to as the phase 1 insulin release. Well, I know that's not true. In general, you're probably right that as far as bolus of insulin goes, it's much larger once your blood sugar goes above 100. But I'm sure there are people who are very insulin resistant that even having measurements in the 90s or even the upper 80s could still see a decent amount of insulin release that would keep fat loss at bay and would make it very difficult for them to lose weight. What blood ketone monitor do you recommend? Barnyard Coffee. Well, there are 2 major ones. The original one that I started using when I first experimented with ketosis was called Precision Extra, but they have been superseded by a company that makes the strips a whole lot cheaper. The company's Keto Mojo, so go find Keto Mojo. All right, if my blood glucose is low, is it necessary to even test for ketones, and what glucose number would be optimal? Great question, Kay Borwick. I think it's always good to take a peek at both, where if you have a blood sugar of 85, which would be considered pretty decent, I would test ketones just to see where you are, and not every time. I think if you test it every once in a while, just to kind of take a peek, and I'll do that every once in a while, even now, and I've done this for years now, I'll take a peek in and I'll see 1.2 when my glucose was 87. And so it's knowledge is power, just kind of knowing where you are. And what glucose number is optimal? You're looking for anything under 90, okay? And when you've been keto adapted, and you tend to have higher levels of ketones, your blood sugar should be lower. And again, don't worry if it goes below 80, that's not hypoglycemia. I've gone into fasted states, you guys, where I've been fasting for days on end, and towards the end of like six or 7 days, I'm seeing blood glucose in the 50s. completely fine, asymptomatic of any kind of hypoglycemia, and yet that was completely normal because the body was fueling itself with fat. Okay, that makes sense? Fat and ketones. Thinking of gifting a glucose meter for my adult kids for stocking stuffers. Bulletin 2018, I think that's a great idea. Like I said, every single person who cares about their health should be testing their blood glucose. It's too easy, it's too inexpensive not to be doing that. And again, you don't have to do it on a daily basis, and you're not doing it every hour on the hour. You're just basically taking a peek in every once in a while. And keep in mind, you can test in the morning and you'll tend to have maybe a little bit higher level in the morning sometimes. Keto dieters, there's a certain segment of us, I'm one of them, where you have a little bit elevation in the morning. I've talked about this before on a previous Jimmy Rants. A little bit elevated in the morning, and yet it's completely normal because the rest of the day it's normal, it's within the 80s and everything's fine, and it also shows up in your A1C as completely fine. So you know it's just a blip on the screen. We talked about this in my book called The Keto Cure. It's a glucose sparing effect when you have that higher level of glucose in your blood when you first wake up. Keep in mind, what raises glucose is not just carbohydrates, but also cortisol. So when is cortisol at its highest? In the morning. So that's why you have higher blood sugar. Not to worry, you guys. I still get daily emails about people that freak out because they have higher levels of blood glucose in the morning, and it's really not a big deal. All right. Yes, Penny, I just addressed your question about the dawn effect on glucose. So hopefully that answered your question. Thank you for your podcast. Thank you, Kay Borick. Appreciate it. I'm usually 68 to 70 keto for a year. Next year, it saved me and my career as a chef. My hands were falling apart with rheumatoid arthritis. Excellent. I'm glad that it's helped lower the inflammation in your body so that now you can do your job. Appreciate your knowledge. I've almost finished your newest book. Thank you, Penny. It's called Real Food Keto, by the way, you guys, if you want to copy, realfoodketo.com. But that is it, you guys, for this Jimmy Rant. So if you're just joining us, we've talked about how higher ketones don't necessarily translate into higher weight loss. There's this misconception within the keto world, especially from new people who come into this. They think, oh my gosh, I need to push my ketones higher and higher and higher so that I can lose weight. And it doesn't work that way. So what can you measure to see if you can produce weight loss and other health effects? What you can do is test your blood sugar. All right, guys, that's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. Go to jimmyrants.com, and here's how it works. We start off on Instagram Live at Livin' Low Carb Man, LIVIN LOWCARBMAN. You can follow me down there and interact with me. Great comments today, you guys. And then it's up there for 24 hours on Instagram. Then we pop it over onto YouTube, and so you can see them forever and ever. Amen. And then we also have a Jimmy Rants podcast, which if you enjoy the show, go over to Apple Podcast and write us a review of the Jimmy Rants podcast. It really helps out new podcasts when they first get going. We're already in like 20 something episodes, so it's pretty darn cool. If the urine strips are still showing ketones, does it mean I'm not fat adapted? No. That notion that they switch over from urine to blood is not 100% of everybody. But there's a certain segment that keep the ketones in the urine and they also produce them in the blood. And then there's other people where it completely disappears in the urine and goes all to the blood. So no, that's not, don't worry about that. It sounds like you are fat adapted if you're showing them in your urine long after the keto adaptation period. All right, guys, that's it. JimmyRants.com is the website. And until next time, we'll see you then.